Okay, so once again, very good morning. And today we are going to start the fifth unit of telecommunication network management. And fifth unit is mainly about the application oriented part. So we have studied all the theoretical concepts, and your fifth unit is about the application. So where you can have network management and how different networks manage their system. So the topic for today is about ATM. So ATM is your asynchronous transfer mode. So it's MIB, and how the different interfaces we have such that it works properly. So those things we will be looking upon. So the topic for today is your ATM. So asynchronous transfer mode. So to begin with, ATM network management. So here we use broadband networks, right? So we use all your internets and kinds of things. So those things are manageable. Okay, so which whenever we have an internet connection, we call them as WAN, right? So wide area network. So if it is within our system, within our building, then we call them as LAN. So local area network. So whenever you're using your internet, then it becomes a WAN, so wide area network. So this broadband services are managed by your ATM technology. So asynchronous transfer mode. So how we do that is you will have a service provider, right? So whenever you're using internet, we have some service provider like you have Airtel, you have Vodafone, you have Geo, all those kinds of things. So those service providers will provide you the capability, will provide you these things such that you are able to access the network. So you have a big competition between these service providers so that they are able to just grab customers. So recently we saw that ATM, that is your Airtel, has lost so much of customers because of that network issue that it is facing on. So those kinds of things we are reading every day, and Jio is providing so much of offers that it is grasping new customers. So likewise, we have many service providers. So what these service providers generally do is they do this kind of OAM operation. So these following management functions they do. They do the service providing. So they are operating to give you the service. They are administrating. So next they are doing the maintenance and it is doing provisioning. So these are the major functions that every service provider do. So the service provider can be either a public service provider or it can be a private service provider. So if you are using a network only within your entity, your boundary, then we call them as a private. Suppose if you are using your Airtel, all those things, those are, it is open, it's an open network, right? So we call them as public service provider. So in general, the public service provider will do these four management functions. So they provide the service, they administer things, and then they do maintenance. So whenever you have any network problem, so we gave them query, right? So we call them to the customer service center, or we just go to the customer service shops that we have, and then we do the things get done. So those kinds of operations, those kind of functions are provided by your service provider. So this functions, we in short we call them as OAMP. Okay, OAMP: operation, administration, maintenance, and provisioning. So these are the functions which a service provider will provide any customer. So if you are using an private network, so then we call them as private user network interface. That is, if you are using a private network, then it becomes private. If you are using any public network, then it becomes public user interface. So here you can see that you have ATM users. ATM in the sense, don't remember that ATM machines that we have. It is asynchronous transfer mode. So those users, if they are working with a public network service provider, then that interface we call it as public UNI. So UNI stands for user network interface. So if an ATM user, so if a user is just using your public network, then you are using the public network interface. If a user, then if it is using a private network, then it becomes a private user network interface. So these kinds of things are just an concept that you need to know. So uh, if for example two private networks can also communicate with a public network. So that is what is given in this picture. So UNI stands for user network interface. So if you are, it is possible that you have a private network which communicates with a public network. So that is also possible. So you can have all the four combinations: a public network with a public network, a private with a private with a public. So all those kinds of things, right? So we have these combinations are possible. So when a public and a private network communicate with each other, then they are using public user interface. So when two public networks communicate, then they are using public user interface. And if a private with a private, then they are using private network interface. So those are just an introduction part, and this is what is main thing that is important with your ATM. So you have these five interfaces, okay, M1, M2, M3, M4, and M5. So these five interfaces will provide you capabilities such that you can have your public with private or private with public or public with anything. So those kinds of combinations of network communication is possible only with the help of these five interfaces we have. So we can also call them as models. So if I'm using the M1 interface, so M1 interface can be used or should be used only when an end user is communicating with a private network management system. So a private network management system can be a human being. Okay, it can be like a service provider, or like a manager human person, or it can be like a network management system, like how we saw in the previous chapters, right? So we have manager and objects. So that manager object will manage all the objects that we have on your network. So all the components that we have are called as manageable objects. So we have one manager which is capable of managing different managed objects. So, a manager and your agents are nothing but software programs. They are just programs which run on the particular devices. So, likewise, your M1 interface is used when your end user, okay, when your end user is just communicating with your private network management system. So, what can be this end user? So, this end user can be any ATM switch, like how we saw here, right? So, we have this ATM switch. So it can be any kind of ATM devices, or it can be any ATM networks, so any kind of things. So this end user can be either a workstation also. So these are possibilities that an end user can be. So end user are nothing but the person who are using the network. So any kind of ATM machines or any type of ATM devices we have, which is following your network standard, which is ATM. So that devices we can call them as end user. So whenever end user communicates with a private network management system, then we call it as then we are using the interface M1. So the interface M2 is used when a private ATM network is communicating with a private network manager system, private NMS. So this is possible. So a private ATM network communicating with a private network manager. And then M3 interface. So as you can see in the diagram, when a private network manager communicates with a public network manager, like how we have it here, right? A private ATM network is communicating with a public ATM network. So then we are using the public interface. So this M3 is used when a private network manager communicates with a public network manager. Next comes M4. So M4 is used when two public networks communicate with each other. So same, whatever things we have seen here, the same thing we have it as a named them with a particular interface number. So M4 is when public ATM network communicates with public network manager system. So next is M5. So M5 is when two public network communicate with each other. So much importance have been given for M1, M2, and M3 interface. And as per IETF, that is Internet Engineering Task Force, much much importance have not been given for the interface M4 and M5. So then if we have an end user which who wants to communicate with private ATM network, so then it is private user network interface. And if your private ATM network is communicating with a public ATM network, then it is public user network interface. So these things we have seen in the previous slide. So this interfaces, when and how they communicate, that we should be remembering. And this is given by your ATM forum. And the next one is Integrated Local Management Interface, ILMI. So when this will be in use is when you have two different networks communicating with each other. So this interface, I was telling you, right, we have this M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. All these are interfaces. So these interfaces communicate when two different entities or two different networks communicate with each other. So for example, I can be using internet of Apple. So you might be using internet of Vodafone. Then you need some interface, right? So in order to do the communication. So those kinds of things is what is your integrated local management interfaces. So this interface provides capabilities such that you are able to work with different networks. So interface means it will have some we can say you can have methods or modules in precise. You can have some modules. So these modules have some kind of object identifier. So like remember the MIB which we saw earlier, right? So every module will have object identifier and every object has got its own object identifier. So those kinds of things are available in these interfaces that help you to have a network communication possible. So here if you could see in this right corner, I'll just use this pointer. So on your right, you can see this here. Here you have your integrated local management interface. So when your private network ATM switch is communicating with the public network ATM switch, and you also have this interface here. So when your end user is communicating with a public ATM switch, and you can find your here also you have that interface. So these interfaces allow you to work properly such that you don't face any problem. So these interfaces are just like we have an intermediate, right? So this is about your integrated local management interface. Next is your MIB. So MIB for ATM. So this MIB is given by your two sets of documents which is given by IETF and ATM forums. IETF is Internet Engineering Task Force, and the second one which is precisely for the ATM, which is ATM forum. So this MIB will be using, that is you need MIB and SMI for everything. So for your SNMP version 1, version 2, version 3, we saw the MIB and SMI. Then for your remote monitoring also we saw how will be your MIB, that in that only we saw the security features which are available in SNMP version 3, right? Data integrity, data confidentiality, data origin authentication, timeliness module. So these were the things with which your SNMP was able to provide you the security feature. So these are available in your security submodule. So we have those kinds of things which are precisely given for the SNMP likewise. So this ITF and ATM forum have given what will be the MIB for the ATM. So this is what the structure of MIB looks like. So you have this MIB2 which we have already seen, and then the ATM forum. So as I told you, this MIB2 is given by IETF, and this ATM forum specifies for the particular ATM network. So as we have seen in MIB2, which is a super set of MIB1, so which contains the system, so which we have seen already, and then we have this interface. So this interface provides around 10, 11 modules, so which helps you to have different modules have different meaning and their functionalities. And then this transmission, so this transmission also provides you to transfer your data on your network using either UDP or any kind of any kind of network protocols. And then if MIB contains the MIB objects. So next is ATM MIB, so which contains the objects which are which are available only for the ATM. So we have set of objects which are available for the ATM. So those are available in the corresponding modules. So next, under the enterprise, we have ATM forum, so which contains admin, UNI, user network interface. So UNI, data exchange, DXI stands for data exchange, and then emulation, and then network management. So these kinds of modules are new for us. So these are available in these are available under the module ATM forum. So as the name specifies, ATM forum admin is for the administrative purpose. So and its ID, object ID is 1, and then ATM forum UNI. So UNI is for user network interface, and its object ID is 2, and ATM UNI DXI, which is user network interface data exchange. So it is for the communication between the different networks. So for this communication, you can also be using interfaces that we have seen already. And in emulation, then network forum management. That is, you need some kind of management, right? Whenever you have a network, you need some administrators. So like how we have a class in charge for every class who manages the class. So likewise, whenever you have something group of some kind of components, then we need a manager who is capable of managing those kind of things. So every so network has got its manager. Likewise, ATM forum has got its own manager, network manager. And this is about the M1 interface that we were seeing. So as you know, so M1 is used between the private network management system and the end user. Just recollect this diagram. So M1 is used between private network management system and the end user. It is always two-way communication. So M1 is used between the end user and the private network management system. So we have network management system. So this is one kind, and this is your end user. So this end user has got the ATM device. So which has got inbuilt SNMP agent. So this network management system is like your manager that we have seen in the SNMP. And this whatever device we are using, that is the agent. So we have an interface. So this interface M1 will allow you to communicate your end user with the private network management system. So in this device, so whenever we have an agent, it will be having the MIB, right? So this MIB contains all these three RFC. So RFC 1213 is the MIB that we have, right? Every MIB version 2 is available in RFC 1213, and then we have RFC 157 4, which is the essential tools for OSI network. And then we have RFC 1695, which contains the definition of the managed object. So this is specific to the ATM. So 1695 contains definitions for the managed objects. Like how we saw earlier, right? Your for SNMP, we saw that the structure that it follows, the syntactic structure it follows is ASN1, right? The same thing is followed in ATM also. So ATM also it follows for syntactic meaning, it follows ASN1, abstract syntax notation 1. So this is about your M1. So this is a simple SNMP ATM management. So this communicates with through your SNMP, your communication happens. So next, for every interface, that is M1, M2, M3, M4, you will be having a set of modules, that is MIB, and then you will be having a set of tables which tells you what are the values that each table holds on. So like for every M1, M2, M3, M4, M5 interfaces, you will have to remember at least 3, 4 values in each of the table, if at all not all the things for your exam point of view. So if you are asked as a descriptive questions, you need to remember at least 3, 4 points that we have it in every tabular. The first is the system. So system is available in your MIB2. So its description is the overall systems that we have. It is the super class, I can call it as, that is available in RFC 1213. So next you have set of interfaces. So these are available in your MIB2. You would have noticed in this diagram, right? System interfaces. So these are available in your MIB2. And then you have system interfaces, then you have transition, then you have DS. So this DS is mainly used for your Ethernet and all those kinds of network transfer. So those kinds are available here. So next is Sonet. So Sonet uses optical fiber. So optical fiber way of communications, that is available in Sonet. And then you have ATM MIB, and then you have the forum. So these are available. So forum is further divided, right? So we saw that it is available here in this here. So ATM forum, it is further having so many modules. So those modules are given here, and this is the documentation for those modules. All the references that you want to know about that particular module is available here. So DS1, as I told you, it is for twisted pair cable, and DS3 it is for coaxial cable, and SONET it is for optical fiber cable. So whenever you are using optical fiber, your speed is very much more. So next one is about the interface 2, M2. So we use M2 between a private network management system and a public network management system. So that is given, I don't remember. I just, yes, it is between the private and private. So private network management system with a private ATM networks. That is what M2 interface does. So whenever you have a private network with a private ATM system. So here you can see that you have this uh, ATM interface, and then on here you have this private network. So this private network contains ILMI, so which is your integrated local management interface that we saw earlier, right? So next it has got a management agent. So here same thing you can have, and you find that you have a proxy here. So the use of the proxy is this proxy will act as an agent which does the transmission from your what to say this IMLI MIB, right? So you have this MIB, so you need some data transfer between them. So that is done by the proxy server. So proxy acts as an agent between your ILMI, that is your interface, and the SNMP MIB. Okay, so you need this SNMP, that is you have your ILMI here, and then you have this SNMP, right? So we need some kind of interface or some kind of proxy which helps you to uh, do the communication in a much simpler way. And then same we have this RFC which describes all the MIB that are available. So you have two devices which are communicating with each other, and then they communicate with the network management system. So when a private network communicates, that is private ATM network communicates with your private network management system, then we will be using the M2 interface. So this is a private ATM network, and this is your network management system, private network management system. And in M1 interface, we have this further division, right? So we have this if number, if table, MIB objects. So MIB objects are further into if xt table, if stack table, if test table, and if receive address table. So the definition for each of which is given here. So if x table, its object ID is if MIB object 1, and it is an additional object for the interface table. Next, stack table. So it is in MIB object 2, and information on relationship between the sublayers that it holds on. So for the stable entries only, we saw that it can be either valid, invalid, under creation, or under usage. We saw four entities for tables, right? So same thing follows here. So next, test table. So it tests whether your instructions are given properly by the NMS to your agent. And then receive address table. So all the data that every network management system receives, like your packets, frames, those things are available in your receive address table. So every entity has got its specific object identifier. So as I told you, every interface will have a set of modules, okay, like these things, like this MIB. So we have set of modules, and you will have the corresponding table entries and what this table will hold on. So this you need to remember. For all the interfaces, you have this table, that is your modules, and these table entries. So you need to remember them. And whatever topics we are going to see for your fifth unit, it is available in chapter 12 of Mani Subramaniam book, Network Management System. So it is available in chapter 12. So whatever previous that is remote monitoring, all those things were available in chapter 8. Then from chapter, that is your fourth unit, is available in chapter 8. And from there directly, chapter 12 contains your fifth unit topics. So this is the transmission groups that we have. So here we have seen that you have this transmission, right? One second. Yeah, this transmission. So as I told you, this transmission depends on which kind of network you are using, whether you are using an optical fiber network or whether you are using a coaxial cable, what kind of communication medium, that transfer medium that you are going to use. So in general, it is divided into three groups, that is DS1, DS3 and the Sonnet. So DS1 has 1.5 Mbps twisted pair cable, and DS3 contains 44.7 Mbps, that is bits per second, coaxial cable, and Sonnet provides 155 Mbps optical fiber. So as you can see, the different networks provide different kind of speed. So it is lesser in a twisted pair cable, and it is much better in coaxial cable and very much faster in optical fiber cable. We already always prefer optical fiber network thing, so that it is very fast in data transfer. So this transmission group is divided into three: DSN1, DSN3, and the SONET, and its corresponding object ID is given here, 18, 30, and 39. So next is about your M2 interface. So this M2 interface is between your private network management system and your private ATM system. So this, whenever you're using this kind of network transfer, you will be using the M2 interface, so management of a private network. So these are the managed object groups that we have. So everything has got a specific meaning. So no traffic description, interface, configuration table, DS entry, TT table, all these kinds of things. So as you told you, you will be having MIB for every interface, M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. You need to know what are the MIB and what is the table. So for M1, we saw that this is your MIB for M1, and this is the table entries for M1. So likewise in M2, so these are your managed objects, and you will having the table entries for those. The next, I just omitted it because it is self-explanatory, because you'll be having the table name, you'll be having the object identifier, and you will be having the description of that particular table entry. So next we'll be looking about M3. So M3 interface is used between a private network management system and a public service provider network management system. Just recollect this diagram. Yes. So M3 is between private network management system and public network management system. So between a private and a public network management system, we have this M3 interface. So it allows the customer to monitor and configure their portions of the public ATM network. So if I am a user, we whenever we use the service provider, we have the facilities, right? We have so many app that help us to have our request generated. For example, if you want to know how much network you have used, so what is the remaining data pack that I have, what is the balance that I have, everything we have a app, right? So that through which you communicate with your network management system. So I am a public network user, so I am just using it. But whatever data they have about me is private. because only I should be able to know what kind of data pack I'm using, what kind of informations I have. So those should not be available to the other user. So I'm a public network user who is trying to access the private values that are stored in my service provider. So in those situations, we will be having this M3 interface. So this M3 interface has two classes. Okay, one is for status and configuration monitoring, and the second one is for virtual configuration. So the status and configuration management is like how much network I'm using. So what is the Mbps speed that I have, all those kinds of things. And virtual configuration will be having like your connection establishment, all those kinds of things. So those two are divided into two classes, class 1 and class 2. So this is a diagram which tells how this M3 layer works. So on your left, you can see that you have this customer network management system. So this customer network management system communicates with your private network management system. So M2, it communicates a private with a public. So this customer network management system is specific to me. So what this customer network management system do is it will provide and it is capable of providing the M3 interface service. So you can see that you have this carrier management system, which is further divided into class 1 and class 2. That is what we saw here, right? So class 1 is for status and configuration monitoring, and class 2 is for virtual configuration. So that is what is given here. So this capability, so that is your customer network management, is capable to provide this M3 interface. So this is the one which is giving you the request to the carrier management system, and it gets the response from the carrier management system. So customer network management system will provide you the interface M3 services. And then we have this what to say, this public network user interface and public ATM network. So these kinds of internet providers. So those things they just communicate, and we use those things. So customer site 3, site 4, we can have different kinds of customers, right? So I am a customer which I am using a Airtel service provider. So likewise, so those things are available in your carrier management system. So this class 2, okay, this class 2 is further divided into three groups. So one is ATM level subgroup. So I didn't have it as a PPT, but I just noted down. So this class 2 is further divided into three groups: ATM level subgroup, and then VP, that is virtual private network level subgroups, and traffic subgroups. So we will further be looking upon the remaining part in the next class. So if you have any doubt, you can ask me.